an artist who's on the ground in co.uk. The link is in the show notes below. He went to Dauma and to see where the so-called chemical attacks happened on April 7th. And you got to read the whole thing, but I'm going to just read you. And this is what he encounters, and he has doubt that chemical weapons happen. There's no concrete evidence. Which again, we launched rockets last week along with the Brits and the French on alleged gas attacks, not concrete, alleged. And this guy just walking through the streets gets like, huh. So he, this is what happens. This is the start. He's walking around, right? So, an underground clinic whose images of suffering allowed 3 of the Western world's most powerful nations to bomb Syria last week. It's the footage we saw of the kids and everything, right? There's even a friendly doctor in a green coat, and when I track him down to the very same clinic, cheerfully tells me that gas videotape which horrified the world, despite all the doubters, is perfectly genuine. For the same 58-year-old senior Syrian doctor then adds something profoundly uncomfortable. The patients, he says, were overcome not by gas, but by oxygen starvation in the rubbish-filled tunnels and basements in which they lived on a night of wind and heavy shelling that stirred up a dust storm. As Dr. Assam Rabbani announces this extraordinary conclusion, it is worth observing that he is, by his own admission, not an eyewitness himself, and as he speaks good English, he refers twice to the jihadi gunmen of Jaish al-Islam, the Army of Islam, in Dauma as terrorists, the regime's word for their enemies, and a term used by many people across Syria. Am I hearing this right? Which version of the events do we believe? France is claiming they have proof. The U.S. media has quoted sources saying that urine and blood tests show this too. The World Health Organization says its partners on the ground treated 500 patients exhibiting signs and symptoms consistent with exposure to toxic chemicals. At the same time, inspectors from the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons are currently blocked from coming here to the site of the alleged gas attack themselves, ostensibly because they lack the correct UN permits. This is, and he's walking the streets, talking to people. Within the last day or so, probably. There are many people I talked to amid the ruins of the town who said they never believed in gas stories, which were usually put about, they claimed, by the armed Islamist groups. The particular jihadists survived under a blizzard of shellfire by living in other people's homes and in vast, wide tunnels with underground roads carved through the living rock by prisoners with pickaxes on 3 levels beneath the town. I walked through 3 of them yesterday, vast corridors of living rock which still contained Russian rockets and burned out cars. There's a photo of him standing in this, if you look to the link below, him standing in one of these tunnels, right? And the story he says of Dauma is not just about the gas, it's about thousands of people who did not opt for evacuation from Dauma on buses that left last week, alongside the gunmen with whom they had to live like troglodytes for months in order to survive. I walked across this town quite freely yesterday without soldier, policeman, or minder to hunt my footsteps, just 2 Syrian friends, a cameraman, and a notebook. A camera and a notebook. He talked to all these people that I have no information, and it's pretty crazy. And he talks to somebody. He talks to, he sees a corridor leading downhill where this doctor showed him his lonely hospital, few beds where a small girl was crying and nurses treated a cut above her eye. I was with my family in the basement of my home, 300 meters from here on the night, but all the doctors know what happened. There was a lot of shelling by government forces, and aircraft were always over Dauma at night. But on this night, there was wind and huge dust clouds began to come into the basements and cellars where people live. People began to arrive here suffering from oxygen loss. Then someone at the door, a white helmet, shouted gas, and a panic began. People started throwing water over each other. Yes, the video was filmed there. It is genuine, but what you see are people suffering from hypoxia, which is oxygen poisoning, not gas poisoning. So the video that we used to bomb this country was people having oxygen poisoning from a dust storm that got into the basements where everyone's living because there's all this shelling happening. So it was not gas poisoning. Oddly, after chatting to more than 20 people, I couldn't find one who showed the slightest interest in Dama's role in bringing about the Western air attacks. 2 actually told me they didn't know about the connection. But it was strange. It was a strange world I walked into. 2 men, Hassam and Nazu Abu Ashi, said they were unaware how many people had been killed in Dama, although the latter admitted he had a cousin executed by the Army of Islam for allegedly being close to the regime. They shrugged when I asked about the 43 people said to have died in the infamous Dama attack. The White Helmets, the medical first responders already legendary in the West, but with some interesting corners to their own story, played a familiar role during the battles. They are partly funded by the Foreign Office, and most of the local offices are staffed by Dalma men. I found their wrecked offices not far from the doctor's clinic. A gas mask had been left outside a food container with one eyepiece pierced, and a pile of dirty military camouflage uniforms lay inside one room. Planted? I asked myself. I doubt it. The place was heaped with capsules, broken medical equipment and files, bedding and mattresses. Of course, we must hear their side of the story, but it will not happen here. A woman told me that every member of the White Helmets in Dalma abandoned their main headquarters and chose to take government-organized and Russian-protected buses to their rebel province of Abib, with an armed group of the final truce was agreed. This is insane. This is insane. People there on the ground. No, it wasn't gas attack. One journalist, one British journalist walks the streets and gets enough information to say these alleged attacks are not verified. They don't sound, they're not substantiated. One journalist does this. Man, they just false flagging the shit out of us, guys. Spread the word on this. Spread the word on this article. Spread the word on this video. To anyone who thinks, oh, yeah, it's okay. You see how they lie to us? To justify this war? We need to have Russia as an enemy. It pushes the military-industrial complex. And main thing is Russia and China don't want to use the petrodollar anymore. They don't want to use an American currency for anything. And we're fighting anyone that wants to do that. And we want a pipeline with the Saudis to get to Western Europe. We don't want this Russian-Iranian pipeline because that'll hurt our oil interests. We need an anti-war movement in this country. We need real, serious anti-war movement. We need an anti-war party. It should be tied to labor. And it should really... it would unite the country on so many levels. So make sure you subscribe, guys, because they're unsubscribing people to my channel because they don't want me talking about this. This video will get demonetized, I guarantee it, because it'll have Syria in the title. So please go to my Patreon to keep this channel alive. Thank you.